Hi, welcome. It's Broadcast Beat here at the SMPTE Technical Conference 2017. I'm so excited to be speaking with my guest, David Reisner, who is the Secretary of the ASC Motion Imaging Technology Council. That's quite a mouthful.
Yeah, it's true.
And
Acronym City.
And is a consultant in imaging quality and new technology. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. It's a great pleasure to be here with Broadcast Beat.
Well, it's not really like a new day for the ASC, right? The ASC's been around for a while.
The ASC has been around for a while. The ASC was formed in about 1919. It was the New York Camera Club and an organization whose name I'm blanking on for a moment, joined together and formed the ASC to help cinematographers learn to manage motion imaging technology for that the whole time. It's been the ASC for nearly 100 years now, has been helping the motion picture industry do the job, figure out how to do the job and do it well. Back then it was a rather an extra big deal because they were shooting on nitrate film, and nitrate film could catch fire in the camera.
Right, I mean,
and that's why the Static Club, that's the New York Camera Club and the Static Club.
Okay.
The Static Club was about how to control static in the camera so the nitrate film did not burst into flame.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good aspiration to have, is to not burn your theater down, right?
Well, or burn yourself down if you're the cameraman.
Right, right. So now the ASC has this new committee, the Motion Imaging Technology Council. Tell us about this.
When the industry started moving towards digital cinema, the ASC's had all along for the 100 years, most of the time, not always, as a group called the Technology Committee.
Okay.
And it had gone away for a while, or gotten at least very quiet, and then digital cinema started to come down the line. And so the ASC, Stephen Poster and the board and I recreated the Technology Committee with Curtis Clark as the chair. He had a good pile of both Curtis Clark ASC, so he's an ASC cinematographer also with a strong technical background.
Okay.
And a critical combination for this. And we restarted the Technology Committee to help manage the transition to digital cinema, help preserve artistic intent and artistic options and creative options through this massive change.
And this is really where the ASC lives, right? On that boundary between creativity and creative intent and technology to help you get there, right?
Yeah, it's really true. Cinematography is a really complicated combination of art and inspiration and all sorts of technical abilities and technical knowledge, both at the ticky-tack sort of side and then also when you've got the camera in your hands and you're trying to do stuff. So the ASC is the place where those two things meet, where the technology and the art and creativity come together. And it has been through motion picture's entire history, and even more so, I would say, in this digital age since, say, 2000, 2002, 2003, than before. We're very much in the ASC's history that way.
So it's almost as if you're the guardian of the artistic intent?
Absolutely, yes.
From the toolkit stage to making sure that the cinematographers have the proper tools, all the way through that distribution piece to make sure that what ends up in the theater on the screen is what the original artists envisioned, right?
Yes, and that's very well said. But I will also say we have a little bit more foot in the actual exhibition side than we said, because we work with the studios, DCI, Digital Cinema Initiatives, from the very, very, very beginning. In fact, in my case, from before the beginning, but that's a separate.
Why don't we tell everybody what the Digital Cinema Initiative is and what they do?
In about 2000, the studios recognized that they were going to have to go digital for economic reasons at least. The studios, by going digital, the studios knew they would save about $1 billion a year in distribution costs. It's very compelling when you're a business.
Yeah, it hasn't reduced the price of my popcorn at all, by the way.
Yeah, popcorn is a different profit center, and the movie chains have to make money.
You're right.
And popcorn is one of the main places they do it.
I know.
So So
sorry, I didn't mean to get you off the track.
Quite all right. It's a complicated business we're in. So DCI the studios worked on forming DCI to specify what digital cinema would be, to be satisfying to the studio's needs as businesses, to filmmakers' needs as creative people, to
cinema goers' needs, right?
Right, exactly.
To see the best.
To theater chains' needs, to what they had to do, and of course for audience experience and audience needs. So all those things had to be balanced, and the studios got together, 6 of them, 7 originally, but then 6 because there was a merger, got together to form DCI to do that. And we were, the ASC Technology Committee started coordinating with DCI at the very, very beginning. I was involved with them before either of those beginnings, and then we all came together and we did these things. And we worked with DCI in a very constructive way to determine that one of the things we had to do is, if we were actually going to spend the money on this huge change, we had to make sure that the creatives could make movies that they wanted to make, and that audiences would enjoy those experiences. And so we decided collectively that the way to do that was to make a real movie, a feature motion picture quality movie, but that could be used for testing things, that was designed to test. And that was the ASC DCI, so it's co-production of STEM, the Standard Evaluation Material.
Oh, okay.
So it was about $250,000 in cash,
so
and another $250,000 of in-kind contributions from the industry. People in this industry are fantastic about working together and to meet the goals. You know, it's yes, it's complicated at times, but everyone really pitches in when they need to. It's just amazing, actually.
That's so cool. So this organization, the committee is going to be MITC, I understand, pronounced?
MITech.
MITech.
MITech, so it's acronym city, the ASC Motion Imaging Technology Council.
So there's a bunch of different committees, right? I mean, I've got camera, lens, motion imaging workflow, DI, professional monitors, next generation cinema display, UHD TV, virtual production, virtual reality, advanced imaging, digital archive, digital restoration and preservation, SSIM Wave Evaluation Working Group, and ACES, the Next 2.0 Working Group.
Right.
That's a lot of stuff.
It is. It's about 15-ish of them, and that's why I don't get a lot of sleep most nights. And that's why putting together the progress report for this year.
You hold that up. Let's see that. Very nice.
This is the September issue of the SMPTE Motion Imaging Journal, and the feature article. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but the feature article every year is our ASC Technology Committee, or now ASC MyTech, progress report, and we have a 28-ish page piece in there that covers all these things in a frequently deep way. It's an important source for people working in this industry. There's a lot of important points in there.
Okay, so there's like 15 committees and there's 22 pages.
Yeah.
Give us a few highlights of some of the specific things that you're working on.
Okay, well, let's see. So one of the key things, I'm going to flip up my own notes to remind myself so I don't. One of the key topics that we're dealing with is high dynamic range imaging.
Okay.
So people get it in their consumer TVs. The consumer television companies wanted to sell a new generation of TVs. That's their business, to sell a new generation of TVs
high dynamic
all
range,
the time.
HDR.
And that was the next. That was the obvious next thing. So 4K people don't care about as much, really.
I think 4K,
it's not terrible, but it's not a bad thing.
It's my instinct that 4K is easier to understand and HDR is easier to see.
Yes, I think that's well put. Well put. When you look at an HDR image that's a good HDR image, an image really done HDR,
right?
You notice. Almost anybody notices. But the 4K, some people notice, some people don't. Depends how big the screen is and how far away they are.
Right? Yeah.
And some people see it pretty easily, and some people have a hard time. And the same thing with wide color gamut. Wide color gamut is nice. Okay. A friend of mine's front walk, you can't shoot with the P3 color space.
Okay.
It goes outside that. It fits in the pointers gamut, but which is a little wider, step wider, but it won't fit in P3. Does it matter? It's not critical, but would it be nice to be able to show his flowers? Yes, sure, yes. But the high dynamic range, anybody notices right away. If it's a true high dynamic range shot, and there's been a true high dynamic range color correction done.
Tell me about the color correction.
Well, okay, so one of the projects we did, we'll touch on it later, is the ICAS, the Image Control Assessment Series.
Okay.
The ASC and the PGA shot some footage to test and demonstrate.
I was actually involved with that with the Producers Guild.
That's right.
That was a wonderful cross-committee, cross-organization.
Right. And that one was specifically to test ACES a little bit. ACES is the Academy Color Encoding System. It uses a wider color encoding,
and the purpose
higher resolution and wider dynamic range.
Right.
And we wanted to test that.
Yeah, and the purpose of ACES, right, is since there's so much color work done all over the world, and a film will go everywhere, it just makes sure that everybody's looking at the same color, right? Everywhere they look?
It gives us methods to do that, yeah.
Yes.
And not everyone does it, of course, and there are complexities that make it not quite the ideal that we would like. It doesn't. Most of those complexities relate to high dynamic range, actually, and the generation of monitors that support HDR, which are not terribly consistent. There's a great deal of difference. The consistency is improving,
right?
But they didn't do what I would have told them. They didn't do what our advanced imaging committee would have told them.
Well,
but they did. You know, it's moving forward, and we're all learning to work with what we've got.
I think there was a lot of rush from the consumer electronics industry, right?
Yes.
To get those sets out.
That was really a large issue, yeah. So the ACES project on our side of the world, the Academy side of the world, was a difficult project, a lot of decisions, but made a lot of very, very good progress. But what's called the ITU REC 2020, that's the
say that again. The
REC ITU, International
ITU.
Telecommunication Union.
Okay.
So that's an international standards body. SMPTE is international, but a smaller international than ITU. ITU is the step bigger, big brother.
Right.
And ITU standards have the role of law in many countries. So
mostly in Europe,
in many
right?
countries, yes, but also Africa.
Oh, okay.
In many countries, you have to do what the ITU standard says. That's it. It's illegal not to. I don't know what the punishment
Only way to
is.
get spectrum allocated to you, right? Is to follow
at least,
that.
at minimum.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that, but at least
Okay.
that. Yeah. So, ITU did this REC 2020 for this next generation of televisions. So that includes 4K, it includes high dynamic range, it includes what is called the REC 2020 color gamut, which includes the entire human visual spectrum.
So we're talking about the amount of distance between the darkest darks and the brightest brights.
Exactly.
We're talking
yes.
about the number of pixels across.
Yes.
And we're talking about the number of discernible colors that we're playing with. Pretty close.
Yes, basically, yeah. And also the number of steps in between that darkest dark and brightest bright, how many steps are in there.
Okay.
And if you don't have enough steps, you get something called banding, where you can see a step transition sometimes.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
It's the world that we live in now. There's still some of that. There's certainly been a bunch, but there's still some.
So what are some of the other different deliverables that you guys, the important contributions that you guys have been making? You mentioned ACES. You mentioned different.
The STEM was a big
STEM.
deal.
Tell us about that.
So we wanted to make sure that the standard that DCI required for putting out, and that SMPTE would ultimately standardize, was good enough to let artists do the kinds of movies they'd been doing, and also good enough to let the archive, old movies, be shown well, and give audiences good audience experiences with those movies.
Right, because
so,
to go back a ways, when some of the video standards were created, it was like Aunt Sue's wedding video was the test video that was being used.
That's right. And also we had some strong constituencies arguing very strongly at the ITU side for using HDTV as the standard for digital cinema.
I see.
And the studios didn't feel that would be adequate, and the ASC didn't feel that would be adequate, and SMPTE didn't feel that would be adequate. And on SMPTE's side and the ASC side, I didn't feel it would be adequate, so that helped those organizations feel that way. It's not just me, but a big team. All this stuff is a lot of people working together.
Sure.
That's what we do in this industry. And yes, I was one of the loud voices all the time. I was willing to get my nose bent a little bit here and there.
Well, because you're very passionate about this work.
Well, yeah,
obviously.
I care about the movies that we make are amazing. Not every one, but even the poor ones, I'm impressed by the work that people have done. It's always impressive, and many of them are just plain fantastic. We have a number of people that we watch and that we award and whose names we all know. They just do amazing work. And a lot of those guys are at the ASC, and a lot of the stuff that supports that comes out of SMPTE. SMPTE is the technical organization that is like this with Hollywood and the creatives. Much, much, much more than, say, the ITU.
So you have a lot of feelings about how many names there are right at the end of that movie, right? You were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, it's, at the end of a movie credit roll at this point, it goes on a long time, and sometimes it feels like it's too long. Is it 400 people these days? Whatever the number is. But most of those people, maybe somebody is somebody's aunt or something, but the vast, vast, vast majority of those people contributed towards making that movie happen and making it work. Getting the director and the cinematographers and the production designers and the producers creative vision on the screen. There's a huge set of people involved critically. I also mentioned in these discussions, it's easy to bypass the editors. And editors also play an absolutely crucial role in making that story be the thing that audiences want to watch.
Well, a lot of times,
all of these people contribute, and that's what's one of the things that's so impressive.
Sometimes the editors are on the set now. They're in a little trailer off cutting while you're shooting. I mean, it's really a much more, in one sense, it's much closer together, and in another sense, there's people all over the world, right, creating elements for that.
Yeah, and these days especially, yes. So many movies go to so many places. It used to be a movie maybe went to 3 or 4 facilities, and now a dozen is not uncommon, and that's a little scary.
But I think that's why the standards work is so important, right? Because you have to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yes, yeah, very much, yes, and that's at each step in the process. So you need people on the same page for camera and on-set stuff. You need people on the same page in post-production. You need people on the same page in mastering and in distribution and exhibition, and then actually in the theaters. So there's many steps, and these days now for home viewers, whether it's by broadcast or whether it's by OTT, over the top, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu.
And I think we're seeing some of the forefront of that HDR work happening in that space, right? In that OTT space.
Well, yeah, and it seems to me, I'm a little bit on the side on that. I'm not dead center. But companies like Netflix and Amazon they have a certain amount of leverage. They've got a lot of screens they're connected to, and they're also pretty good sized companies.
Yeah, not small.
So if they say to a TV manufacturer, if you want to have a Netflix or Amazon app in your television, you have to meet these standards. And they do say that. They use their leverage to require that those TVs and those apps do the right thing to help us get the images we want on the screen. And we here being a very wide we, including cinematographers and studios.
Now if they can only require that those televisions come set up properly, that would be nice, right?
We've actually been suggesting for 15 years that there be a one-button cinema mode for the TVs. You hit the button and it goes into cinema mode and it looks right.
Well,
but
often they come set for sports mode or action mode, right? From the manufacturer, they come preset that way.
Right.
Which isn't necessarily the best movie watching experience.
No, really, truly not. Yeah, truly not. It sells well in the store because the store is brightly lit and it makes the TVs show up compared to the one next door nicely. But it's not a good way to look at movies.
Well, we just have a minute left, and
Oh,
so
good grief. Okay.
1 or 2 minutes left. So, just tell us 1 or 2 other things that you want to make sure we understand about what the ASC has going on with MyTech and everything else.
So, one of the key things is to recognize that the ASC, like its 100-year history, is the key place where the technology of making movies and the artistry of making movies come together. And the ASC MyTech has taken that approach, has been that voice, beaten that drum, if you will, for the whole industry. And we've had very good relationships with the studios and all the vendors and technology companies to do that. We've done things like, I'll just mention briefly because, what the heck, we did the ASC CDL, the ASC Color Decision List, which is used in making more than 95% of movies worldwide.
Wow.
So that's part of what we did to help get the cinematographer's creative intent into the production process and then through the production process.
Great.
So that's, but we've got our plates very full, and as I mentioned, we've been discussing HDR is one of the very main issues there. But another very important one is what the next generation of displays will be in theater.
Okay, we've got like 1 minute left. Why should a young person who's in the industry, newly in the industry, why should they join the ASC?
Well, it's first off, you end up in the ASC because you love making movies, you put your life into making movies and TV shows, and you get good at it. And when you make great movies and great TV shows for a while, if you're a cinematographer, eventually the ASC may invite you to join. So if most people don't get to be in the ASC, there's only 350 members total.
Right.
But the ASC is happy to coordinate with people and to have participation. A lot of the people in MyTech are volunteers. I am. I'm an associate member of the ASC, but I'm a volunteer. And our 300-ish people who are industry luminaries are all volunteers. We all care about the movies. That's why we're there.
So that's it. If you care about the movies, you should get involved in some way, either as a volunteer or an associate member.
Yes, in SMPTE and in the ASC, both organizations doing critical work.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you,
It's been
Jeanette.
a great talk with you today, and I look forward to speaking with you next year about what you guys have cooked up.
Yeah, we've got a few things on the plate. We'll keep busy, and we'll be happy to let you know.
I'm sure you will. So here we are at Broadcast Beat at the SMPTE Technical Conference in 2017. Thank you so much for watching.